Hello and welcome to this micro teach session. My name is Jenny Williams and I'm a mental health nurse. So I'm in a good position to be able to answer the question, what is mental health? And that is going to be one of our learning objectives, as is having an understanding of why mental health is important. And we're also going to look at resilience and looking at ways to increase resilience as well. So let's start with a definition. When I think about the definition of what is mental health, I'm reminded of a psychologist who once explained to me that her definition of mental health is simply the way that we make compromises with ourselves and our world. And I think that that's a really important point, but it's also well demonstrated by the World Health Organization when they refer to emotional intelligence and having insight into our own emotional state, as well as the ability to cope with stress. And then that gets me thinking more about stress. And McGrath describes it well as an imbalance between the way in which an individual perceives a demand and how they feel that they can respond to it. So it's all about that perception, about whether we feel that we can cope with the demand rather than the reality of whether we can or cannot cope with the demand. And that's what's really important. So why is it important to have good mental health? Well, having good mental health is essential for us to be the best versions of ourselves. And it's something that can fluctuate dramatically depending on what's going on in our lives and how we feel about it. So it's important for us to keep a close eye on our mental well-being and ensure that we're investing enough time in looking after ourselves. One way that we can look after ourselves is by increasing our resilience, and that's what we're going to look into in a little more detail now. So by resilience, I mean the way that we can adapt and the way that we can deal with adverse situations. So how validating is it when a friend says to us, "You've got this"? Such a simple phrase, but somehow very, very helpful. And what's helpful about this is that it helps with that perception that we can cope with what is being demanded of us. So going back to that definition of stress, it makes all the difference if we believe that we can cope with what's being asked of us. And so by building that internal locus of control and changing that voice from "you've got this" to "I've got this," and being able to do that for yourself and pull yourself back from that stress response and believe that you are capable of doing it is very, very helpful in itself. Focusing on the things that you can control rather than ruminating on the things that we don't have influence over is really, really important. Looking at ways to enhance and play on the strengths that are listed here is really, really helpful for our resilience. So for example, by practicing gratitude, by making a list each day of 3 things that you've achieved, 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that you're excited about, and 3 people that love you or have made you feel loved, even if that's animals, they count too. These don't have to be really big things. These can be really little things. I made the bed this morning. I had a shower. I phoned a friend when I didn't really feel like it. I'm looking forward to lockdown easing. These small things will help us feel more in control of our world, and they will help us to focus on the positives. Our mind is so open to suggestion that once we start thinking and focusing on the positives, we will start feeling positive. Next is our ability to problem solve. By setting those realistic goals, it can really help us by giving that practical example of just how we can cope with what's being demanded of us. And again, helping us to feel more in control. So that logical way forward, once we can step back from the emotion of it all, is really, really helpful. Just to break it down into those bite-sized chunks can make it feel like we can manage this and we can get through it bit by bit. Now, this as a nurse is a big one for me. Being able to take your breaks sometimes is really, really challenging. So making sure you take your break is step one. Step two is making sure that that break is meaningful. So stepping away from your environment, doing something different. It's it's really, really helpful to just get that space physically and mentally. So have a think about the ways that you can do that. Reaching out, it's such a simple thing, but when we perceive that we haven't got the time, it's usually when we need it the most. So even when you flick that kettle on and you're making a cup of tea, make a phone call. Get creative about how you find the time to do this, but make sure that you make the time. And also, finding people who've experienced similar challenges and setbacks can be really powerful. Again, building that confirmatory evidence that somebody else has faced similar challenges and they've got through it. There might be some practical tips, but emotionally, seeing that somebody else has got through something similar is really, really powerful. And again, puts us in that positive mindset. And finding perspective, looking for the bigger picture and looking at the meaning behind the things that you're doing and the reasons why you're doing them can help you make the choice in the first place about just what you're doing and whether that's going to have a good impact on your mental health. If I do business with people who are not kind to me and not nice and don't give me positive feedback, then very, very soon my confidence will take a tumble. And that's not because I'm not competent at what I'm doing. That's just because I'm not surrounding myself with the right people. So perspective and bigger picture is really, really worth having a hard think about. Lastly, celebrating the small wins as well as the big ones, making sure that you're giving yourself credit for those little things. And that's another reason to do these gratitude lists, because it makes us grateful for the small things. It makes us celebrate the smaller achievements because they are significant, they all add up. So please have a think from this about what you're going to do moving forward for your mental health. And thanks for watching.